Hello from the Dukascopy TV studio in Geneva. I'm Daniel Schwenger. We're talking about corporate responsibility and sustainable landscapes with Francis Vorhies. He is director and founder of Earthmind. Francis, welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Daniel.
So you're looking at the environmental impact of companies at the landscape level. So could you outline the mission of your organization Earthmind, and especially this mission when it comes to landscapes?
Well, Earthmind is actually focused on looking at how to make prosperity sustainable, how to work with enterprise to be part of the solution, not just in a sense of economic returns, but social and environmental returns. At the landscape level, what we're looking at is how companies where they operate can be responsible, if you will, both inside the fence, inside their own grounds, their own facilities, and within the broader landscape, the broader area around which they operate.
So you look for environmental returns, and that means like corporations have to have a maybe higher impact when it comes to sustainability. So what is the consumption of different sectors when it comes to landscapes?
Well, probably the biggest consumer of landscapes is agriculture. Our species eats a lot, and there's a lot of demand for products, both cereals and dairy products also, and meat. And these products require a lot of landscape conversion. And so that's a major impact. And so one of the big concerns is how can large-scale agricultural businesses try and maintain the integrity of the landscape when they're converting big chunks of the landscape to monoculture? That's one group. Others, mining, oil and gas, even recreation, golf courses, take big chunks of the landscape. So if you look around the planet, you'll see that there are big landscape impacting companies, minerals, soft commodities, recreation, and so on.
So there are corporate standards out, so can you outline the most important and also maybe most current standards that are available?
Well, in the agricultural sector, there's quite a lot of commodity standards that have developed, and they tend to be standards for each commodity. For example, there's a roundtable for sustainable palm oil. There's a roundtable for responsible soybeans. And so you have standards developing at commodities, or some a little broader. There's organic agricultural standards for different types of products. There's responsibility standards like UTZ and so on. The advantage of these standards is that they're targeting best practice for agricultural production practices with respect to environmental issues. The disadvantages of them is that because they're commodity focused, they don't necessarily help you look at what you can do at the landscape level. They aren't opposed to the landscape level, but their focus is on the commodity. So I would say right now we see most of the best standards in the agricultural sector. The mining, the oil and gas sector, there's very good guidelines, but you won't see organic gas or sustainably responsible oil or tin. They haven't quite got the same type of standards for production processes, so they have guidelines that you see in the agricultural sector.
Okay, so there are standards available for the forestry, and but not so much for the mining sector. What can be done about it? Are there any movements towards having more?
Well, for the forestry, one of the big ones is FSC, the Forest Stewardship Council. Another one is PEFC, which is based here in Geneva, which is another standard for forestry practice. For the mining and oil and gas sector, there are guidelines that the industry have developed. The mining sector has something called the International Council on Mining and Minerals, which is up in London, and they've come up with some very good guidelines, but it's not exactly a standard for the products. One of the ones that's actually useful for all of them is the standards that have come out of the International Finance Corporation. So the International Finance Corporation is an investment arm of the World Bank Group, and they've set up a set of 8 performance standards that address issues like biodiversity conservation, labor, human health, relocation, indigenous peoples, cultural heritage, and so on. And those standards actually have a landscape flavor to them because they ask the companies to be responsible not just within their facilities, but how the facility connects to communities and to supply chains upstream and downstream. So I'd say right now, the best generic standard out there is the financial standard. Standards have been developed under the International Finance Corporation.
So giving these standards and guidelines, so how can your organization help companies to have a better impact on the landscape level?
So what we're doing is, one of the things we're doing is we're developing, if you will, a new asset, which we call a verified conservation area, a way to recognize good practice on the ground by land managers. And those land managers may be oil and gas, they may be mining, they may be forestry. Right now, we have a very well-developed program around the world of legally protected areas, and that's fine. But what about responsibility outside of protected areas? And how do you get recognized for this? So we've established a standard for verified conservation areas. Now this year, piloting a new registry where companies could actually put onto the registry, this is the piece of the planet that we're trying to be responsible with, and that responsibility needs to articulate both what we're doing within the area and how the area links to the broader landscape, so it has a landscape focus to it. So that's one approach, and then the approach is linked to the IFC standards and linked back to the other commodity standards that I mentioned earlier.
Thank you, Francis Vorhies from Earthmind, NGO and consultancy here in the Geneva region. Thanks so much for being our guest today.
Excellent, thank you.
And thanks for watching. Do make sure to keep clicking back on the Dukascopy TV website for latest updates and exclusive interviews. Have a great day and see you next time.